so excited to welcome Wendy Collins, the Chief AI Officer of Aspirent, an NTT data company, to the NTT Experience Center podcast during this official side event of TechCrunch Disrupt, talking about data and AI. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So great to have you. And for our audience, it would be wonderful just to hear a little bit about your background. It's so interesting what you've done in this space for so many years.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I've been in data and AI for 25 plus years. It's my passion, and what I really love is bringing solutions to businesses to be able to make their customers happy. I've worked for some big brand names, Delta Airlines, Macy's, Western Union, and all of them have really invested in AI and transforming the way that they do business and competitive advantage.
One of the areas that I think I remember you mentioning when we met is this customer analytics area. It has been one of the main pillars within organizations where they're really thinking deeply about AI and analytics.
For sure, that is a really exciting area. We think about AI opportunities in three big buckets. The first one is operational efficiency. The next one, if you move up the value creation chain, would be revenue generation. And then beyond that is where the art and the science really meet, and that's customer experience. And really, generative AI is bringing so much energy and excitement to what that can look like. The possibilities are so exciting.
Wow. So I am going to read these questions. The market is completely obsessed with AI right now. Leaders are being bombarded with questions and expected to have a plan. And how can leaders cut through the hype to zero in on where and how their organization should be investing in AI?
Well, I have to say, it's such an exciting time to be in AI. I remember I built my first AI model back in 1998, but it was so tiny because we didn't have the internet at scale to create the content. We didn't have cloud computing and storage to store the content, and we didn't have compute power to actually really create an alive experience with generative AI. So what a time to be alive. But it comes with its own complexity, and it's a really fast-moving landscape. So my one big piece of advice to leaders who are really trying to cut through the hype, it is focus on three things. First, your AI strategy. And it has to be a strategy that leads with business outcomes, right? The technology is still changing and it's still evolving. And the technology that will be the forerunner 3, 6, 9 months from now may not even exist today, right? So it's important to focus on business outcomes with a comprehensive AI strategy, business use cases, and then data is foundational to it all. So data readiness is an absolute must from a pillar of AI strategy perspective.
So next question, what are some of the biggest pitfalls or challenges that organizations may encounter as they pursue AI initiatives?
Well, I think the two biggest, let's start with one. There is a bit of a misconception right now that AI is only generative AI, with the burgeoning excitement around ChatGPT and all the large language models. But there really are some proven AI methodologies and solutions that may be actually more appropriate for different types of business problems. So I would say open the toolbox and not just using the golden hammer of generative AI. The second one, I would say, is really around sharpening your understanding of what the business benefit is. And that will be the North Star for any decisions around investments for AI in general.
So I'll stop in before asking the next question and say, are there some good examples that you have from your experience of an example that seemed like a no-brainer for a business, but when you really look at the business case, it's just not there? We don't have to call out any companies, but maybe there's some use cases that seem really cool, but when you look at it, it's probably not the best investment.
Sure. Sometimes I think it's really compelling and exciting to create a conversational AI experience, a virtual agent, if you will, that's able to interact autonomously with your customers. But that can be an expensive endeavor. And so depending on what you need and the savings or the revenue benefit attached to it, sometimes robotic process automation might be a better solution than implementing generative AI and the cost associated with maintaining and building a solution like that.
Right. So for our audience, I think this is a really important one for all of us talking about the hype and really getting to the adoption for enterprise. Can you help the audience understand a little bit more about the difference between RPA and more of the models that are continuously learning and actually ML?
Yeah, sure. So when we think about large language models like GPT and BARD and others, we know that those are trained on huge, massive data sets because it needs to not only know the answer to a question, but be able to formulate it in a way that is contextually appropriate for whoever is asking the question. And that is more of a complex problem to solve, both from a processing and from a storage and computation power, than a robotic process automation, or RPA, where you pre-select where in a document or a website or wherever you can expect to find the information, and you don't have to generate an answer or a response on your own. It's more about seeking the answer in a known location that may vary from time to time, but the location stays the same.
Right. So it's like a decision tree on the back end, probably much, much easier to implement, but provides potentially, am I hearing you, even more business value, or is it really the cost effectiveness of RPA versus?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the business problem. Certainly, it can be more cost effective than leveraging a large language model or a conversational AI solution. So it just depends.
Yes,
right. It's always the answer.
Of course it does. Okay, so amid the flurry of excitement and uncertainty that is generative AI right now, what key pieces of advice would you give leaders as they try to make sense of it all? I love your question.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, the first one I would say is bet on the business. You've already heard me say it's not about technology, it's not about a tech strategy, it's about what are the business outcomes and how can they be enabled by Gen AI. So that's the first one. The second one I would say is compete to win. I mentioned those 4 different buckets of value creation from AI, and the smartest companies are leveraging AI for competitive advantage. Start with operational efficiency because you can use that to fund your competitive advantage, but definitely look for the competitive advantage opportunity for AI.
You mentioned revenue, and it makes me think of sales. Is that an area where you can find the opportunity to support revenue with AI?
It can be. Pricing is another one. So there are lots of really tried and true models, existing models, that are not generative in nature that can help you formulate a great pricing strategy. And the most interesting pattern we're observing is companies that are leveraging generative AI to unlock data sets that have been historically unstructured and hence inaccessible to help make better decisions. So they're using it as a kind of a 1-2 punch. Leverage generative AI to unlock the new sources of data to supercharge your existing AI models.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Well, I'd love to spend more time with you on that one. Maybe we have to write a blog about that together. So final question for you. A lot of what we hear about AI is conceptual. Here's what's possible with AI. What you just said is a perfect example. Wow, I want to hear more. But not so much about what's done. Can you share some real life initiatives and outcomes delivering for companies?
Sure. I think sticking with the pricing theme, if you will, we have worked with a client who they recognized that they were a commodity offering and they couldn't compete on price, or at least they couldn't win competitive advantage on price. So they focused on the value added services that they could offer to their customers. And at the end of the day, they won in the marketplace. And it was that value added math model and analysis that allowed them to unlock that secret to the competitive edge.
Wow, that's exciting. I think people will want to get to in touch with you. Is there a way to do that?
Of course, yes. Wendy Collins, so wendy.collins@aspirent.com.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks, Wendy. Can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.